Episode number 40, Gambling Stories. Before casinos and state-run lotteries, in every greater Boston neighborhood, there was widespread illegal gambling, mostly winked at but by the gendarmerie. Just about every bar, tavern, restaurant, and newsstand had a bookie, including at least two at the State House in Boston. You could bet on horses or dog races, the numbers, even ball games with the bookmaker. The price of a bookie doing business was to get busted every once in a while and either pay a fine or do short time at the county hoosegow. Years later, my friend Mickey Mickle expected to do a couple of months at the Billerica County Jail every other year as his bookmaker's cost of doing business. Payoffs to the cops could stall the arrest for a while, but inevitably he figured they would crack down. It still galls me that Mickey would be arrested for what the state government now does. The state even advertises its scratch tickets on TV with tax money. Mickey's odds were a lot better than the state's 150 million to 1. It is okay for the legislature to allow gambling to provide funds for what's called education, but they had previously put ordinary citizens in jail for the same thing. Pure hypocrisy. There were many games of chance at that time. There was the numbers racket or the policy game or what my father called the nigger pool. Political correctness had not arrived in Boston. It was a sucker bet, so neither my father or any other reasonably intelligent folks ever bet on the numbers. You needed a bookie to bet this, and there were many around our neighborhood. The complicit Boston Daily Record newspaper published a set of numbers which purported to be some factoid of the U.S. Treasury Department, and that was the daily number. If you had all four numbers consecutively, you would win very big. If you had at least three of the numbers consecutively, you would win something from the bookie. This game, the model for all the public lotteries today, and it still is, a sucker's bet. There were other kids' games of chance. Throwing quarters against the wall. Closest to the wall wins all the coins. Morte, an Italian game where one must guess out loud the total number of fingers that two or more players would put up. Fingers up guess had to be called in advance and in Italian. Otto, due, tre, sei, etc. and so on. So you would play this for money or just for fun. Liar's poker. Each bettor would have a dollar bill out and they would try to make pairs or straights from the dollar bill's serial numbers. In the game, there was also bluffing, whereby you bet as if you had much more than you actually had on your dollar to force your competitor to drop out. Best hand wins, all dollars, of course. We would also play card games like poker, whist, and hearts, but craps was a favorite game of chance. This was a grown-up game that some precocious kids played too. As I grew into my teens, gambling became interesting to me. Is it possible for me to make a profit from gambling? Every Sunday morning behind Rich's Drive-In across Memorial Drive from the magazine Beach, there was a big money crap game with adults and some younger guys. After the 8:30 mass, I would go down there and watch the neighborhood characters shoot craps. An oil dealer, a plumber, some ne'er-do-wells, one or two of the local bookies, and a few other older guys, plus some young guys like me. We would all stand near the back utility door of the restaurant and toss the dice against the wall. The location was picked because it had a parking lot, did not open till noon, and was not very visible to cops. Some of these older guys would sometimes lose their whole weekly paycheck in one morning. Yet some guys seem to win a lot. There's only one way to cheat, in craps. Use loaded dice, weighted dice that is, surreptitiously substituted for the standard dice. The two loaded dice would automatically present a constant built-in number after throwing by the dishonest shooter. My brother and my father had advice for me about shooting crap. First, don't do it. Second, if you do it, do not be a shooter. Bet against the shooter. The odds are against the shooter. So if you bet that the shooter loses, you will win more than lose in the long run. However, the long run could be a real long time if the shooter gets hot. So I tentatively began to make what are called side bets. I would bet that the shooter would crap out before he made his point. Crap out means rolling a 2 or a 3 or a 12 on the first roll or a 7 after establishing a point. I tried it a few times. The first Sunday I got a bit ahead. The next Sunday I lost money operating with the same plan. It was very tricky, and after a few Sundays I stopped that kind of gambling. Thank you for viewing or listening to my podcast episode. I really appreciate it. If you liked it, and if you so choose, I ask you to send a good review and perhaps refer friends who might be interested in this podcast series. Again, my thanks.